The Wish House by Rudyard Kipling. The new church visitor had just left after a 20 minutes call. During that time, Mrs. Ashcroft had used such English as an elderly, experienced, and pensioned cook should who had seen life in London. She was the readier therefore to slip back into easy, ancient Sussex TS, softening to DS as one warmed, when the bus brought Mrs. Fetley from 30 miles away, for a visit that pleasant March Saturday. The two had been friends since childhood, but of late destiny had separated their meetings by long intervals. Much was to be said, and many ends loose since last time to be ravelled up on both sides before Mrs. Fetley, with her bag of quilt patches, took the couch beneath the window, commanding the garden and the football ground in the valley below. Most folk got out at Bush Tie for the match there, she explained, so there weren't no one for me to cushion agin the last 5 mile, and she do just about bounce ye. You've took no hurt, said her hostess, you don't brittle by agin Liz. Mrs. Fetley chuckled, and made to match a couple of patches to her liking. No, or id ha broke 20 year back. You can't ever mind when I was so's to be called round, can ye? Mrs. Ashcroft shook her head slowlish, never hurried, and went on stitching a sackcloth lining into a list-bound rush tool basket. Mrs. Fetley laid out more PG 95 patches in the spring light through the geraniums on the windowsill, and they were silent a while. What likes this new visitor o' yourn? Mrs. Fetley inquired with a nod towards the door. Being very short-sighted, she had on her entrance almost bumped into the lady. Mrs. Ashcroft suspended the big packing needle judicially. On high air she stabbed home, set aside. She don't bring much news with her, yet I dunno as I've anythin' special agin her. Earn it Keeneslade, said Mrs. Fetley. She's full o' words and pity, but she don't stay for answers. Ye can get on with your thoughts while she clacks. This don't clack, she's aimin' to be one o' those high church nuns like. Ern's married, but by what they say she've made no great gains of it. Mrs. Fetley threw up her sharp chin. Lord, how they damn cherubim do shake the very bones o' the place. The tile-sided cottage trembled at the passage of 2 specially chartered Fordyce charabancs on their way to the Bush Tie match, a regular Saturday shopping bus, for the county's capital, fumed behind them, while from one of the crowded inns, a 4th car backed out to join the procession, and held up the stream of through pleasure traffic. You're as freedunged as ever, Liz, Mrs. Ashcroft obs. Only when I am with you otherwhiles, I am granna 3 times over I lay, that baskets for one o' your grandchiller, ain't it? Tea's for Arthur, me Jane's eldest. But he ain't workin' nowheres, is he? No, tea's a picnic basket. PG 96. You're let off light, my Willie, he's a lose at me for money for them aerated washbowls folk puts up in their gardens, to draw the music from Lunnon like, and I give it him, poor fool me. And he forgets to give you the promisecus after, don't he? Mrs. Ashcroft's heavy smile seemed to strike inwards. He do no odds twixt boys now in 40 year back, take all and give naughtin, we to put up with it, poor fool, we 3 shillin' at a time, Willie'll ask me for. They don't make nothin' o' money these days, Mrs. Ashcroft said. And Annie last week the other went on me daughter. She ordered a £1/4 suet at the butcher's, and she sent it back to be chopped. She said she couldn't bother with choppin' it. I lay he charged her then. I lay he Roman 999. She told me there was a whisk drive that afternoon at the Institute, and she couldn't bother to do the choppin'. TCK. Mrs. Ashcroft put the last firm touches to the basket lining. She had scarcely finished when her 16-year-old grandson, a maiden of the moment in attendance, hurried up the garden path shouting to know if the thing were ready, snatched it, and made off without acknowledgement. Mrs. Fetley peered at him closely. They're goin' picnickin' somewheres, Mrs. Ashcroft explained. Ah, said the other with narrowed eyes, I lay he won't show much mercy to any he comes across either now. Ooh, the deuce do. He remind me of all of a sudden. PG 97. They must look arter Thersilvesame, as we Roman 999. Mrs. Ashcroft began to set out the tea. No denyin' you could, Gracie, said Mrs. Fetley. What's in your head now? Dunno, but it come over me sudden like about dat woman from Rye Ive, slipped the name Barnsley, wasn't it? Batten Polly Batten you're thinkin' of. That's it, Polly Batten. That day, she had it in for you with a hayfork time. We was all hayin' at Smaldene for stealin' her man. But you heard me tell her, she had my leave to keep him. Mrs. Ashcroft's voice and smile were smoother than ever. I didn't. We was all looking. That shed prod the fork spang through your breasts when you said it. Knew shed never go beyond bounds, Polly. She shrugged too much for real doin's. Aloo seems to me, Mrs. Fetley said, after a pause, that a man twixt two fightin' women is the foolishest thing on earth, like a dog bane called two ways. Meb, but what set ye off on those times, Liz? That boy's fashion o' carryin' his head in arms. I haven't rightly looked at him, since he's growed. Your Jane never showed it, but him why tease Jim Batten, and his tricks come to life again, eh? Meb, there's some that would ha made it out so been barren like themselves. Oh ho, ah well, dearie me now. And Jim Batten's been dead this 27 years, Mrs. Ashcroft answered briefly. Want ye draw up, Liz? Mrs. Fetley drew up to buttered toast, currant bread, stewed tea, bitter as leather, some home-preserved pears, PG 98, and a cold boiled pig's tail to help down the muffins. She paid all the proper compliments. Yes, I dunno as I've ever owed me belly much, said Mrs. Ashcroft thoughtfully. We only go through this world once. But don't it lay heavy on ye, sometimes, her guest suggested. Nurse says I am a sight liker to die o' me indigestion than me leg, for Mrs. Ashcroft had a long-standing ulcer on her shin, which needed regular care from the village nurse, who boasted, or others did for her, that she had dressed it 103 times already during her term of office. And you that was so able too, it's all come on ye before your full time, like I've watched ye goin'. Mrs. Fetley spoke with real affection. Somethin's bound to find ye sometime. I've me eart left me, still, Mrs. Ashcroft returned. You was always big-hearted enough for three. That's somethin' to look back on at the day's end. I reckon you've your backlookins too, was Mrs. Ashcroft's answer. You know it, but I don't think much regard in such matters, except when I am along with you. Gra takes two sticks to make a fire. Mrs. Fetley stared with jaw half-dropped at the grocer's bright calendar on the wall. The cottage shook again to the roar of the motor traffic, and the crowded football ground below the garden roared, almost as loudly, for the village was well set to its Saturday leisure. Mrs. Fetley had spoken very precisely for some time without interruption, before she wiped her eyes, and PG 99. She concluded they read is death notice to me out o' the paper last month. O' course, it wadn't any o' my becomin' concern, slit be I 'adn't set eyes on him for so long. O' course, I couldn't say nor show nothin', nor I've no rightful call to go to Eastbourne to see is grave either. I've been schemin' to slip over there by the bus some day, but they'd ask questions at 'ome past endurance, so I 'aven't even that to stay me. But you've 'ad your satisfactions. God, yes, those 4 years was workin' on the rail near us and the other drivers. They gave him a brave funeral too. Then you've not to cast up about another cup o' tea. The light and air had changed a little with the sun's descent, and the two elderly ladies closed the kitchen door against chill. A couple of jays squealed and skirmished through the undraped apple trees in the garden. This time the word was with Mrs. Ashcroft, her elbows on the tea table, and her sick leg propped on a stool. Well, I never, but what did your husband say to that? Mrs. Fetley asked, when the deepened recital halted. "E said I might go where I pleased for all of Roman 999. But seein' was bedrid, I said id tend I am out knowed. I wouldn't take no advantage of I am in that state. Lasted 8 or 9 week. Then he was took with a seizure like and laid stone still. For days, then propped himself up a bed and says, you pray no man'll ever deal with you like you've dealed with some, and you, I says, for you know, Liz, what a rover was. It cuts both ways, says but I am deathwise and I PG 100. Can see what's common to you. He died a Sunday, and was buried a Thursday, and yet said a heap by him on time ordered I ever. You never told me that before, Mrs. Fetley ventured. I'm payin' ye for what ye told me just now. Him bane dead, I wrote up sayin' I was free for good to that Mrs. Marshall in London, which gave me my first place as kitchen maid. Lord, how long ago. She was well pleased, for they two was both gettin' on, and I knowed their ways. You remember, Liz, I used to go to in service between whiles for years when we wanted money, or my husband was away an occasion. Did get that 6 months at Chichester, didn't Mrs. Fetley whispered. We never rightly won to the bottom of it. Ed ha got more, but the man didn't die. None o' your doin's, was it, Gra? No, 'twas the woman's husband this time, and so my man bane dead. I went back to the Marshalls as cook to get me legs under a gentleman's table again, and be called with a handle to me name. That was the year you shifted to Portsmouth. Caution, Mrs. Fetley corrected. There was a Midland lot o' new buildin' bane done. There my man went first and got the room, and I follered. Well then, I was a yearabouts in London, all at a breath, like 4 meals a day, and livin' easy. Then long towards autumn they two went travellin' like to France keepin' me on, for they couldn't do without me. I put the house to rights for the caretaker, and then I slipped down air to me sister Bessim wages in me pockets and all, and's glad to bailed of me. PG 101. That would be when I was at Cosham, said Mrs. Fetley. You know Liz there wasn't, no sheepdog pride to folk those days, no more than there was cinemas nor whisk drives man, or woman ud lay, hold o' any job that promised a shillin' to the backside of it didn't they? I was all peaked up after Lunnon, and I thought the fresh airs ud serve me, so I took on at Smaldine Obligin with a hand at the early potato liftin' stubbin' hens and such like. They'd ha mocked me sore in my kitchen in Lunnon, to see me in men's boots and me petticoats all shorted. Did it bring ye any good? Mrs. Fetley asked. Twadn't for that I went you know swells me that non happens to ye, till it has append your mind, don't warn ye beforehand of the road ye've took, till you're at the far end of it, we've only a backwent view of our proceedings. Oo was it? Awry mockler Mrs. Ashcroft's face, puckered to the pain of her sick leg. Mrs. Fetley gasped awry Bert Mockler's son. And I never guessed. Mrs. Ashcroft nodded and I told myself and I beleft it that I wanted fieldwork. What did ye get out of it? The usuals, everything at first worse than not after I had signs and warnings aplenty. But I took no heed of 'em, for we was burnin' rubbish one day, just when we'd come to know how 'twas with both of us 'twas early in the year for burnin' and I said so. No, says he, the sooner dat old stuff's often done with says the better is face, was hardern rocks PG 102. When he spoke then, it come over me that id found me master which I 'adn't ever before id a lose owned like. Yes, there a yorn or you're a theirn the other side, I like the right way best. I didn't but a rye Roman 999 long then, it come time for me to go back to Lunnon, I couldn't. I clean couldn't, so I took and tipped a dollop o' scaldin' water out o' the copper one Monday mornin' over me left, and an arm dat stayed me where I was for another fortnight. Was it worth it? Said Mrs. Fetley looking at the silvery scar on the wrinkled forearm. Mrs. Ashcroft nodded and after that we two made it up twixt us, so's could come to Lunnon for a job in a liver stable, not far from me got. It I tended to that there wadn't no talk nowhere, his own mother never suspicioned how 'twas he just slipped up to Lunnon, and there we abode that winter not alf a mile t'other from each. Ye paid us fair and although Mrs. Fetley spoke convincedly. Again Mrs. Ashcroft nodded Dara wadn't much, I didn't do for him, was me master, I know God help us would laugh over it walkin' together after dark in them, paved streets in me corns fair, wrenchin' in me boots, id never been like that before ner he. Mrs. Fetley clucked sympathetically. And when did ye come to the end? She asked. When paid it all back again, every penny then I knowed, but I wouldn't suffer myself to know you've been mortal kind to me, he says kind I said. Twixt us but kep all on tellin' me 'ow kind PG 103 id, been an ed never forget it all his days, I held it from off o' me for 3 evenin's. Because I would not believe then, talked about not bein' satisfied with his job in the stables and the men they're puttin' tricks on I am and all they lies which a man tells, when leavin' ye I heard I am out neither elpin, nor inderin, at the last I took off a little brooch, which he give me and I says datlil, do I ain't askin' non, and I turned me round and walked off to me own sufferin's. Didn't make him worse, didn't come nor right after that slipped off air back 'ome to his mother again. And 'ow often did ye look for to come back? Mrs. Fetley demanded mercilessly. Morn once once goin' over the streets used, I thought de very pavestones shrunk out under me feet. Yes, said Mrs. Fetley, I dunno, but dat don't 'urt as much as aught else and dat was all ye got. No, 'twadn't, that's the curious part, if y'all believe it, Liz. I lay you're further off lyin' now, than in all your life gra. I am and I suffered like id not wish my most errantest enemies to God's own name. I went through the hoop that spring one part of it was headaches, which id never known all me days before think o' me with an edic. But I come to be grateful for they kept me from thinkin'. 'Tis like a tooth, Mrs. Fetley commented, it must rage and rug, till it tortures itself quiet on ye, and then there's none left. I got enough left to last me all my days on earth. It come about through our charwoman's little girl Sophie PG 104 Ellis, was name all eyes and elbers and hunger. I used to give victuals otherwhiles, I took no special notice of and a sight less o' course when me trouble about rye, Was on me beauty you know how little maids first feel, it's sometimes come to be crazy fond o me powin and cuddlin all whiles. And I adn't the eart to beat one afternoon early in spring twas. Mother sent round to scutchel up what victuals she could off of us. I was settin by the fire me apron over me, head half med with the edic when she slips in I reckon, I was middlin short with lore she says is, that all ill take it off youn to do's. I told her not to lay a finger on me, for I thought shed want to stroke my forehead, and I ain't, that make I want techie she says and slips out again. She hadn't been gone 10 minutes for me old edic took off quick as Bane kicked. So I went about my work, prassonly Sophie comes back and creeps into my chair quiet as a mouse eyes was deep in eed, in face, all drawed I asked what pen nothin'. She says Ani, I've got it now got what I says your edic she says all horse and stickalipped I've took it on me nonsense. I says it went of itself, when you was out lay still and ill make ye a cup o' tea twant do no good she says. Till your time's up how long do your edics last, don't talk silly I says or ill send for. The doctor it looked to me like she might be hatchin' de measles o Mrs. Ashcroft. She says stretchin' out little thin arms, I do love ye there wasn't any holdin' agin. That I took into me lap and made much of Is it truly gone she says yes I says. And if 'twas you took it away I am truly grateful 'twas me she says layin' cheek, to mine no one. But PG 105 me knows. How and then she said shed changed me edic for me at a wish ooze. What Mrs. Fetley spoke sharply. A wish ooze no I adn't eared o such things either I couldn't get it straight at first. But puttin' all together, I made out that a wish ooze to be a house which stood, and let an empty long enough for someone like to come and inhabit there. She said a little girl that shed played within the liverystables where a rye worked told her. So she said the girl belonged in a caravan that laid up winters in Lunnon. Gypsy I judge. There's no sayin' what gyppos know, but I've never eared of a wish ooze and I know some things, said Mrs. Fetley. Sophie said there was a wish ooze in Wadlow's, Rojust, a few streets off on the way to our greengrocer's. All you to do, she said, was to ring the bell and wish your wish through the slit o' the letterbox. I asked if the fairies give it don't you know? She says there's no fairies in a wish ooze there's only a token. Goo Lord Amity, where did she come by that word cried Mrs. Fetley for a token, is a wraith of the dead or worse still of the living. The caravangerl told she said well, Liz it troubled me to ear and lyin' in me arms, she must ha felt it, that's very kind o' you I says holdin' tight to wish me edic away. But why didn't ye ask somethin' nice for yourself? You can't do that she says. All y'all get at a wish, ooze is leave to take someone else's trouble I've took ma's edaches when she's been kind to me. But this is the first time I've been able to do aught for you Mrs. Ashcroft, PG, 106. I do just about love you and she goes on all like that. Liz I tell you my emos stood on end to ear I asked what like a token was I to know she says. But after you've ringed the bell y'all ear, it run up from the basement to the front door. Then say your wish she says and go away the token, don't open de door to ye, then I says oh no she says. You Ani ear gigglin like bane the front door, then you say y'all take the trouble off of ever tease you've chose for your love and yell, get it she says, I didn't ask no morsh, was too odd and fevered I made much of till it come time to light de gas and a little after that edic mine, I suppose took off, and she got down and played with the cat. Well I never said Mrs. Fetley, did ye foller it up anyways? She asked me to, but I wouldn't ave no such dealin's with a child. What did ye do then? Sat in me own room, stid o the kitchen when me edics come on, but it lay at de back o me mind. Twould did she tell ye more ever? No besides what the Jippo girl told she knew not sept that the charm worked in next after that'n May twas I suffered the summer out in Lunnon. Twas hot and windy for weeks in the streets stinkin' dried orsidung blowin' from side to side, and lyin' level with the curb we don't get that nowadays. I my old just before hoppin' to, and come down to stay with Bessie again. She noticed I'd lost flesh and was all poochy under the eyes. Did ye see a rye? PG 107. Mrs. Ashcroft nodded the fourth no, the fifth day Wednesday twas, I knowed was workin' at Smalding again. I asked his mother in the street bold, as brass she hadn't room to say much for Bessie no tongue was talkin' folklek. But that Wednesday I was walkin' with one o Bessie's children hangin' on me skirts at de back o Chanter's tot. Prassonly I felt was bane me on the footpath and I knowed by his tread changed, is nature I slowed and I heard I am slow. Then, I fussed a piece with the child to force him past me like so e ad to come past. E just says good evenin', and goes on tryin' to pull hisself together. Drunk was he, Mrs. Fetley asked. Never s drunken wizen, is clothes angin on im like bags in the back of, is neck whiter'n chalk. 'Twas all I could do not to open my arms and cry after him, but I swallered me spittle, till I was back 'ome again in the children a bed. Then, I says to Bessie after supper what in de world's come to a rye mockler. Bessie told me Ed been a hospital for 2 months long o cuttin' his foot wid a spade muckin' out the old pond at Smaldine. There was poison in de dirt, and it rooshed up his leg like and come out all over him. He hadn't been back to his job carterin at Smaldene in a fortnight. She told me the doctor said he'd go off likely with the November frosts, and his mother ad told that he didn't rightly eat nor sleep and sweated himself into pools. No odds out chill, he lay and spit terrible o mornin's dearie me I says. But Meb Hoppin LL set I am right again and I licked me thread point and I fetched me needles I up to it, and I threads me needle under de lamp steady, as rocks and dat night me bed was in de wash house I cried and I cried PG 108, and you know Liz for you've been with me in my throes it takes summat to make me cry. Yes but childbearin' is onny just pain said Mrs. Fetley. I come round by cockcrow and dabbed cold tea on me eyes, to take away the signs long towards next even in I was settin' out to lay some flowers on me husband's grave for the look. Oh the thing I met a rye over against where the war memorial is now. E was comin' back from his 'orses so e couldn't not see me. I looked I am all over in a rye I says twixt me teeth come back and rest up in Lunnon. I want take it he says for I can give ye naught. I don't ask it I says by God's own name. I don't ask non Ani come up and see, a Lunnon doctor e lifts, is 2 eyes at me tease past that. Gra e says I've, but a few months left a rye, I says my man, I says I couldn't say no more 'twas all up in me throat, thank ye kindly Gra e says. But e never says my woman and e went on up street, and his mother o damn Ursh was watchin' for im, and she shut de door baned Roman 999. Mrs. Fetley stretched an arm across the table and made to finger Mrs. Ashcroft's sleeve at the wrist, but the other moved it out of reach. So I went on to the churchyard with my flowers, and I remembered my husband's warnin' that night he spoke. E was deathwise and it ad append as e said, but as I was settin' down to jampot on the grave mound, it come over me, there was one thing I could do for a rye. Doctor or no doctor, I thought I'd make a trial of it. So I Roman 999 next mornin', a bill came down from our Lunnon greengrocer Mrs. Marshall, shed left me petty cash for such like yo course but I told best 'twas PG 109, for me to come and open the ooze, so I went up afternoon train. And but I know you hadn't you no fear. What for there was nothin' front o' me, but my own shame and God's cruelty. I couldn't ever get a reow, could I knowed, it must go on burnin' till it burned me out. Aya said Mrs. Fetley reaching for the wrist again, and this time Mrs. Ashcroft permitted it. Yet 'twas a comfort to know I could try this for Roman 999, so I went and I paid the greengrocer's bill, and put his receipt in me handbag, and then I stepped round to Mrs. Elliser Charon, got the Ausekis, and opened the ooze. First I made me bed to come back to God's own name me bed to lie upon next. I made me a cup o' tea, and sat down in the kitchen thinkin', till long towards dusk terrible. Close 'twas then, I dressed me and went out with the receipt in me handbag fainin', to study it for an address like 14 Wadlow's Road, was the placey a little basement kitchen ooze, in a row of 20-30 such and titty strips o' walled garden in front. Paint off the front doors and non done to non, since ever so long there wasn't hardly no one in the streets, 'cept the cats 'twas ought to. I turned into the gate bold, as brass up to steps, I went and I ringed the front door bell she pealed loud like it do in an empty house. When shed all ceased I eared a cheer like pushed back onto floor o' the kitchen. Then I eared feet onto kitchen stairs like it might hob in a heavy woman in slippers, they come up to de stairhead. Across the hall I eared the bare boards creak under a man at de front door day. Stopped I stooped me to the letterbox slit, and I says, let me take everything bad that's in store for my man a rye mockler, for PG 110 love's sake. Then, whatever it was t'other side de door, let its breath out like, as if it had been holdin' it for to ear better. Nothin' was said to ye, Mrs. Fetley demanded. Non she just breathed out a sort of like. Then the steps went back and downstairs to the kitchen all dragian. I heard the cheer drawed up again. And you abode on de doorstep throughout all gra. Mrs. Ashcroft nodded. Then I went away and a man passin' says to me, Didn't you know that house was empty? No, I says. I must haben give the wrong number and I went back to our ooze and I went to bed, for I was fair flogged out 'twas too 'ot to sleep more'n snatches. So I walked me about lyin' down betweens till crack o' dawn. Then, I went to the kitchen to make me a cup o' tea, and I hidden myself just above the ankle on an old roastin' jack o' mine that Mrs. Ellis had moved out from the corner her last cleanin' in Sonex. After that I waited till the Marshalls come back o' their holiday. Alone there id ha thought you'd add enough of empty houses, said Mrs. Fetley horrified. Oh, Mrs. Ellis and Sophie was runnin' in and out soons, I was back and twixt us. We cleaned de house again top to bottom. There's a lose a hand's turn more to do in every house, and that's 'ow 'twas with me, that autumn and winter in Lunnon. Then non hap overtook ye for your doin's. Mrs. Ashcroft smiled. No, not then long in November. I sent Bessie 10 shillin's. You was a lose, friended Mrs. Fetley interrupted. And I got what I paid for with the rest o' the news. She said the hoppin' ad set I am up wonderful ed PG 111, ad 6 weeks of it, and now E was back again Carterin at Smalding. No odds to me 'ow it ad a pennants longs it ad. But I dunno as my 10 shillin's eased me much a rye bane dead like Ed Hob and mine, till judgment, a rye bane alive Ed, like as not pick up with some woman middlin' quick. I raged over that. Come spring, I add something else to rage for id growed a nasty little weepin' boil like on me shin, just above the boot top that wouldn't heal no shape. It made me sick to look at it for I am clean-fleshed by nature. Chop me all over with a spade and id heal like turf. Then Mrs. Marshall, she set 'er own doctor at me. E said I ought to ha come to him at first goof, stead o' drowin' all manner o' dyed stockins over it, for months. E said id stood up too much to me work, for it was settin' very close atop of a big swelled vein, like behither the small o' me ankle slow, come slow go. E says lay your leg up on high and rest it he says and 'twill ease off, don't let it close up too soon. You've got a very fine leg Mrs. Ashcroft E says, and he put wet dressin's on it. E done right Mrs. Fetley spoke firmly wet dressin's, to wet wounds they draw to humors, same's a lampwick draws to oil. That's true and Mrs. Marshall was a lose at me, to make me set down more, and dat and I healed it up. And then after a while they packed me off down to Bessie's to finish the cure for I ain't the sort to sit down, when I ought to stand up. You was back in the village. Then Liz. I was but never did I guess. I didn't desire ye to Mrs. Ashcroft smiled I saw a rye once or twice, in de street wonderful, fleshed up and restored back. Then one day I didn't see IM PG 112, and his mother told me one of his 'orses ad lashed out and caught IM on the IP, so E was abed in midland painful and Bessie, she says to his mother 'twas pity a rye adn't a woman of his own to take the nursin' off and the old lady was mad. She told us that a rye ad never looked after any woman in is born days, and as long as she was atop the mold's shed contrive for IM, till too, and's dropped off so I knowed shed do watchdog for me thout askin' for bones. Mrs. Fetley rocked with small laughter. That day Mrs. Ashcroft went on id stood on me feet, nigh all the time watchin' the doctor go in and out for they thought it might be his ribs too, that made my boil break again iswin' and weepin'. But it turned out 'twadn't ribs at all in a rye at a good night. When I heard that next mornin' I says to myself, I want lay 2 and 2 together, yet ill keep me leg down a week and see what comes of it. It didn't hurt me that day, to speak off seemed more to draw the strength out o' me like he and a rye, add another good night that made me persevere. But I didn't dare lay 2 and 2 together, till the weekend and then a rye come forth e'en most himself, Aganon hurt outside nurin of him. I nigh fell on me knees into washhouse. When Bessie was up street I've got ye now my man, I says y'all take your good from me thout knowin' it. Till my life's end O God send me long to live for a rise. Sake I says and I dunno, that didn't still me ragins. For good Mrs. Fetley asked. They come back plenty times, but let be how 'twould I knowed, I was doin' for Roman 999 I knowed. It I took and worked me pains on and off like regulat in my PG 113 own range, till I learned to ave at my commandments. And that was funny too, there was times Liz, when my trouble all shrink and dry up like first I used to try and fetch it on again bane fearful to leave a rye alone too long for anythin' to lay old of prassenly. I come to see that was a sign he'd do all right a while, and so I saved myself. 'Ow long for Mrs. Fetley asked with deepest interest. I've gone to better part of a year onct or twice with none more to show than the little weepin' core of it like all shrinked up and dried off. Then he'd inflame up for a warnin' and id suffer it, when I couldn't no more'n, I 'ad to keep on goin' with my Lunnon work it. Lay me leg high on a cheer, till it eased not too quick I knowed by the feel of it. Those times Dat or Rye was in need. Then I'd send another 5 shillin's to Bess, or somethin' for the children to find out, if Meb Ed took any hurt through my neglects. 'Twas so. Year in year out, I worked at dat, way Lizen E got is good from me thout knowin' for years and years. But what did you get out of it, gra Mrs. Fetley almost wailed, did ye see I am reglar? Times when I was heir on me old days and more now that I am heir for good, but E's never looked at me ner any other woman sept, is mother ow, I used to watch and listen so did she. Years and years, Mrs. Fetley repeated and where's E workin' at now? Oh E's give up Carterin quite a while he's workin' for one o' them big tractorous in Firmsplowin, sometimes and sometimes off with Lorisfer as Wales I've eared. He comes 'ome to is mother tween whilst PG 114. But I don't set eyes on him, now fur weeks on end no odds. His job keeps I am from continuin' in one stay anywheres. But just for the sake o' saying somethin' s'pose a Rye did get married, said Mrs. Fetley. Mrs. Ashcroft drew her breath sharply between her still even and natural teeth. Dat ain't been required of me, she answered. I reckon my pains 'ull be counted agin that, don't you, Liz? It ought to be, dearie, it ought to be. It do 'urt sometimes. You shall see it when nurse comes. She thinks I don't know it's turned. Mrs. Fetley understood human nature seldom, walks up to the word cancer. Be ye certain sure, gra, she asked. I was sure of it when old Mr. Marshall 'ad me up to his study and spoke a long piece about my faithful service. I've obliged 'em on and off for a goodish time, but not enough for a pension. But they give me a weekly lowance for life. I knew what that signified as long as 3 years ago. Dat don't prove it, gra. To give 15 bob a week to a woman, 'ood live 20 year in the course o' nature it do. You're mistook, Mrs. Fetley insisted. Liz, there's no mistakin when the edges are all heaped up like same as a collar yowl. See it, and I laid out Dora Wickwood too, she added under the armpit like. Mrs. Fetley considered a while, and bowed her head in finality. How long do you reckon 'twill allow ye countin' from now, dearie? PG 115. Slow come slow go, but if I don't set eyes on ye for next hoppin' this'll be goodbye, Liz. Dunno as ill be able to manage by thenut thout. I have a little dog, to lead me for de chillern day won't be troubled, and oh gra im blindin' up. Oh dat was why you didn't mourn finger with your quilt patches, all this, while I was wonderin'. But the pain do count, don't you think, Liz? The pain do count to keep everywhere. I want Roman 999, say it can't be wasted like. I am sure of itcher of it, dearie yowl, ave your reward. I don't want no more'n this if de pain is taken into de reckonin'. Twill be gra. There was a knock on the door. That's nurse, she's before time, said Mrs. Ashcroft opened to The young lady entered briskly, all the bottles in her bag clicking even in. Mrs. Ashcroft, she began. I've come round a little earlier than usual, because of the Institute dance tonate. You want maned, will you? Oh no, me dancin' days are over. Mrs. Ashcroft was the self-contained domestic at once my old friend. Mrs. Fetley has been settin' talkin' with me a while. I hope she 'asn't been fatiguing, you, said the nurse a little frostily. Quite the contrary, it has been a pleasure only just at the end. I felt a bit flogged out like. Yes, the nurse was on her knees already. PG 116. With the washes to hand, when old ladies get together, they talk a deal too much, I've noticed. Meb we do, said Mrs. Fetley rising, so now I'll make myself scarce. Look at it first, though, said Mrs. Ashcroft feebly. I'd like ye to look at it. Mrs. Fetley looked and shivered, then she leaned over and kissed Mrs. Ashcroft once on the waxy yellow forehead, and again on the faded gray eyes. It do count, don't it, to pain the lips that still kept trace of their original molding, hardly more than breath the words. Mrs. Fetley kissed them and moved towards the door. PG 117.